once you become aware of the way that you are and why you are, you almost have an obligation now to change for the better. And not to change for people around you, but to change for yourself, because to make yourself a better person. You'll be with somebody and they'll just be lazy, so you break up with them because they're just lazy and you can't be around someone who's dragging you down. And then you come across them like in 6 months and you find out they have 3 jobs, they're saving up, they just bought their first house, and you're like, what the hell? Like, how come you couldn't have been like this 6 months ago? Like, they completely change who they are. And it's bothersome because you might think like, wow, I wish I could have had that version of you. But perhaps that version of them just wasn't ready to emerge. Or maybe by being with you, it somehow stymied their, it doesn't mean that you treated them badly, you didn't help them out, but sometimes that's the catalyst that gets people to change. So it takes a lot of self-awareness to realize that to understand when you're changing them for their benefit versus your own. So what you're saying, I think what you're saying then is that people are composites, not components. So it's like people are a whole thing. They're not a bunch of parts put together, they're a whole thing. So when you change one of them, you change the whole thing. And that might be what makes them uncomfortable. Man, like a Jenga puzzle. Take out one piece, the whole thing could collapse. Even if you take out a piece and put in another one that looks just like it, it still may not be as stable. So that's interesting. People are components. I'm sorry, people are composites, not components. I'm going to take that. I'm going to take this part of the video, I'm going to take that and use it for myself. Thank you. We oftentimes think that being changed is a terrible thing, but the perspective of somebody outside is helpful most of the time because you can't see things in yourself. If somebody comes along and tells you that, something about your personality, what would be an example? This would be a personality thing, but if someone tells you that you smell, that you stink, like you physically stink, you won't even notice it on yourself because it's the stink that you're used to breathing in. I'm not saying that our personalities stink, but some parts of us do. And if there's a personality tick that's in you, you may not even be aware that it's there. You may not even be aware that it bothers people. I'm continuously surprised to find out that people think I'm mean. I don't get it. But so many people say it, I guess it must be true that I get perceived that way. So what is it about me that causes people to be intimidated or to think I'm a jerk? I don't know, but there's got to be something, man. So many people say it. Now, is it something that can be changed? Yeah, maybe not. But there are parts of us that are worthwhile changing, perhaps. Well, yeah. So are you saying that in order to try to get someone to change, you have to understand why they are the way they are? And there's almost like a level of understanding or appreciation, like, I get why you are this way. Yeah. Because the person, in order to get someone to change, in order to be willing to change, in order to be willing to change, you have to believe that the person trying to change you has your best interests at heart. And that means they have to take the time to get to know you. Because oftentimes think about why we want people to change. A lot of times we want people to change because the way that they are is not beneficial to us. For example, I think I'll be honest with you, I think most of you guys here need to stop being so damn selfish. Stop using your money to buy yourselves food, and you guys need to use your money to buy me food. Yeah. Yeah.
There's not enough cakes.
There's not enough cakes at Food for Less to bring over here. But that's an extreme example, but this is the way a lot of people operate. You need to change. Why? Because I don't like the way you are. You need to be less selfish and think more about me. But if you don't feel like the person has your best interests at heart, then you'd be crazy to change, because you might realize they might very well be trying to change because it's beneficial to them. It takes a lot, by the way, to say to a person, I don't like the way that you are, so bye. But give me a chance to change. I don't really want you to change. Just stay what you are. Just sometimes the tune just doesn't fit the chords, Not that anyone's better or worse, but sometimes the tune just doesn't fit the chord. And so that's like a big part of it. You have to take the time to understand why somebody is the way that they are, why they do the things that they do, if you really want them to change. Because we all are the way that we are because of experiences that we've had, and positive and negative, of course. But once you become aware of the way that you are and why you are, you almost have an obligation now to change for the better. And not to change for people around you, but to change for yourself, because to make yourself a better person. If you guys haven't experienced this yet, or if you don't know about this yet, you will probably experience this someday, something like this. You'll be with somebody and they'll just be lazy, so you break up with them because they're just lazy and you can't be around someone who's dragging you down. And then you come across them like in 6 months and you find out they have 3 jobs, they're saving up, they just bought their first house, and you're like, what the hell? Like, how come you couldn't have been like this 6 months ago? Like they completely change who they are. And it's bothersome because you might think like, wow, I wish I could have had that version of you. But perhaps that version of them just wasn't ready to emerge. Or maybe by being with you, it somehow stymied their, it doesn't mean that you treat them badly, you didn't help them out, but sometimes that's the catalyst that gets people to change. Yeah. So it takes a lot of self-awareness to realize that to understand when you're changing them for their benefit versus your own. So what you're saying, I think what you're saying then is that people are composites, not components. So it's like people are a whole thing. They're not a bunch of parts put together, they're a whole thing. So when you change one of them, you change the whole thing. And that might be what makes them uncomfortable. Man, like a Jenga puzzle. Take out one piece, the whole thing could collapse. Even if you take out a piece and put in another one that looks just like it, it still may not be as stable. So that's interesting. People are components. I'm sorry, people are composites, not components. I'm going to take that. I'm going to take this part of the video. I'm going to take that and use it for myself. Thank you. Yeah. Dominic, get your hand up.
Oh, no.
There's 2 of you now, dude. Yeah.
Maybe those.
Was it you who had your hand up? It was you, right? It was you. Okay. So I want to make sure I wasn't going crazy again. I never got the medication refilled. Yeah. So maybe trying to change people before it's too late, like you see it in your parents. It's too late to change them. But here's this other person. It's not too late for them. So I don't want them to end up in that same place like that. Yeah. And that would be a positive kind of a change. Because I was trying to figure out if it was either that or people who just like to change other people because they like the ability to change people. Yeah. And it's hard to change a person. It's hard enough to change ourselves, much less another person. And you're going to find that to change another person, you have to have a lot of those things going on. Like Mitch was saying, you have to have their best interests at heart. And you have to know what their best interests are. Some of them are pretty clear. Like, if a person's an alcoholic, I don't know that there's anything positive that can come from alcoholism, besides some poems and some great songs, and some art, and better dancing. But all right, well, hear me out. Alcoholism is a disease, right? It's a terrible thing. We all agree on this, right? Alcoholism, not a good thing, right?
Correct. Yeah.
That's interesting, and we say it's a disease because it destroys families. It's just like not a good thing. We agree on this.
Yeah.
But it's also the only disease that makes you a better dancer, besides Tourette's, and it makes you funnier. So, is it so bad? I mean, yes. But there are worse diseases to have. We can all agree on that, though, also, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, no? Now, if you're an alcoholic Tourette, now you got some moves. I don't know, maybe I think that's funnier than everybody else does. It's like gambling.
Did you mean Parkinson's? Because Tourette's like the tics.
Yeah, but they freak out when they do it, too. Yeah. No, Parkinson's. What the hell's wrong with you, dude? Parkinson's is a horrible disease, dude. You can't just make fun of it like that. Although, hear me out. It's like gambling. Gambling. Terrible, right? We agree on this. Gambling addiction, it's terrible. Destroys families, ruins finances, irreparably damages relationships. It's terrible. It's a disease. but it's also the only disease that you can actually win $1 million with. Can't win $1 million with cancer. No. Maybe if you're an alcoholic gambler.
Lose.
No. Yeah, you lose.
Lose 2 million, win 1 million.
But again, the problem with most gambling addicts is that they're quitters. Most of them quit right before they hit big. Don't be that guy.
Photo of it.
Now, yeah, statistically it's true. Now, be quick with this so you guys can get to the performance task. Something to consider. That last part there too. It isn't necessarily that if we change a person even if we change them for the better, think about convictions. It might be nice if we can get people to agree with us, but think about a person who doesn't have the courage to stand by their convictions. If you change a person's convictions, then you change a big part of the person. One of the things you might like about them is like they have very strongly held views. They have very strongly held views, and it might piss you off that they can actually believe fill in the blank of some like political view. And even though you disagree with them, even though it upsets you that they have that view, you kind of like the fact that they're a person of principle and that they stand by their principles. Because if they stand by their principles there, that means they're probably going to stand by their principles in a lot of areas. And so even though that one thing bothers you and you try to change their political views, if you do change their political views, there are a couple ways of seeing it. You could see it as, wow, this person is really open to what I have to say, and this person actually, now agrees with me, but they didn't do it just to get along. They did it because I must have convinced them, because they're so principled. However, there can also be a thing there where it's like, you just changed your mind because I asked you to. I don't like that. I don't like that in you. Because the thing I liked about you was that you were principled. So sometimes the things that we change about a person, we don't really like the fact that they change. We want someone who stands by themselves and says, this is who I am. This is how I am. This is what I am. And it isn't like this is what I am, take me or leave me. Although sometimes it does come to that. Instead, it's more like, this is who I am. And we can look at that person and say, yeah, I can see that. You're not components, you're a composite. And I respect the composite, which is the first thing that has to happen, respect. And then you can love the composite, despite, whatever. The fact they wear a SpongeBob hoodie to a funeral. Questions, comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques? I think only part of that's going to make it online. The gambling part. Because I haven't done a hear me out in a while.